In section 9.3, we discussed solving quadratic equations. This video will work problems 32, 33, and 34 from your homework, which is on page 564. The learning target for this section is I can solve quadratic equations by graphing and using square roots. Now remember, your key idea for this section was quadratic equations can be solved by a variety of methods, including graphing and finding the square root. Again, we're going to be solving these problems by finding the square root. Notice that each of these problems are similar in their structure. For instance, 32 asks you to find the length of the side of a square. 33 asks you to also find the length of a side of a square. And then 34 asks you to find the radius. Now, in all three of these problems, we're dealing with area. So we're going to solve all three problems in a similar manner. Okay, problem 32. Find the length of a side of a square with an area of 169 square meters. In order to solve this problem, we need to remember that the area of a square can be found by taking the length times the width. Well, in the case of a square, the length and the width are equal to each other. So, in the case of a square and only for a square, the area formula for a square is a special formula. We designate that the length and the width are both sides of the square, and we use the letter S to represent side. So instead of using length and width, we say that both of these are side lengths. And we express the area as area equals side times side, which is side squared. This allows us to set up an equation that is similar to the ones from your lesson. Find the length of the side of a square with an area of 169. If the area of the square is equal to 169, that means that the side length squared is equal to 169. Notice that this is like the problems that we solved in class. If side squared equals 169, let me erase that and fix it. Then I can solve this equation by taking the square root of both sides. The square root of s squared is s, and the square root of 169 is 13. Now remember that when we solved these problems in class, we said that the answer would either be a positive 13 or a negative 13, and we used the plus minus sign. However, when you think about this problem and what it means, in the problem we're asked to find the side length of a square. And side length is a distance, it's a measurement, and measurement is always positive. So since measurement is always positive, we're not going to consider both positive and negative. We're only going to consider the positive. So I'm not going to use the negative. I'm going to eliminate that answer, and I'm going to say that the side length is equal to positive 13. The dimensions are in meters, so it's 13 meters. And then I'm going to answer the question with a complete statement. The side length of the square is 13 meters. Okay, let's try another problem. Again, for the area of the square, we're going to use the formula area equals side squared. And since the given area for this square is 75 square feet, I'm going to write my formula, or my equation rather, as s squared equals 75. To solve, I would take the square root of both sides and say that s is equal to the square root of 75. Now remember that when you're solving for square roots and you take the square root within an equation, you generally use a plus minus sign. However, as we discussed in the last problem, since we're dealing with a side length, the side length should be a positive value. So I'm going to eliminate this negative, and I'm only going to be using the positive square root of 75. Now, I could leave my answer as positive square root 75, or I can take a decimal approximation of the square root of 75. And the square root of 75 is approximately 8.6. Since my dimensions are in feet, I'll label the unit as feet, 8.6 feet. Then we can write the answer to the question in a statement. The side length of the square is approximately 8.6 feet. Okay, let's try the third problem, number 30. In this case, we are asked to find the radius of a circle with an area of 90 square centimeters. Well, remember that the area of a circle is area equals pi r squared. So we're going to replace the a in the area formula with 90. And write this as 90 is equal to pi r squared. And we're going to solve this equation for the radius. We're going to find the length of the radius. Now, to make this a little bit better to look at, I'm going to reverse the sides here. So I'm going to write this as pi r squared is equal to 90. See how I didn't change the equation at all? I just switched the two sides of the equation and made the left the right and the right the left. Okay, now, think about if you had an equation like the one I'm going to write at the top of the screen. 3r squared is equal to 90. How would you begin to solve that problem? Well, you would divide both sides by 3 and write r squared is equal to 30, and then you would take the square root of both sides, and r would be equal to the square root of 30. Well, you're going to solve this problem similarly, only you're going to divide both sides by pi. So r squared is equal to 90 divided by pi. So in your calculator, type in 90 divided by pi, and you'll get back an approximate value. So let's change this to an approximation sign. And the approximate value would be 28.65. Then you will take the square root of both sides, like so, and r is approximately 5.35. Now our dimensions are in centimeters, so it's 5.35 centimeters. You will write your answer in a complete statement. So the radius of the circle is 5.35 centimeters.